Hey Year 5, welcome to week 10 of Maths. This week we'll be focusing on statistics. So, for a quick recap, how can we display data? Think about what you've done in previous years. When would you use those charts? See how many you can name. Today we will be focusing on line graphs. What I'd like you to do first is look at the line graph and can you add the labels to the line graph, please? We've got 10 seconds to do that, just as a recap. So the labels are the key things that we need to remember when we have a line graph. So let's look at labelling those now. So, we've got title, key, x-axis, y-axis, and data. So we know that the title is at the top, and that tells us what the graph is about. Now, x-axis. We remember that x comes before y, and x always goes across. So this is the x-axis. So think of x as across. So if we know that x-axis goes across, we now know that the y-axis goes up. Y to the sky. So in this example, rainfall in millimetres is your y-axis. That's the title. It tells you what these are representing. The key. You wouldn't always have a key, but in this example, because you've got two sets of data being plotted on the graph, you need to be able to see which one is which. So we can see from here that the blue line shows London, whereas the orange line shows Leeds. So it's telling you what the data shows. And so lastly, data. So that is what you're trying to show. So you can't have a graph without any data. Otherwise it would be a blank graph. So your data is the middle bit. So well done for those labels correct. So when we are plotting our data, we have two different options. We can either use discrete data or continuous data, and it is important that you understand the difference between these two things. So discrete data is whole numbers. We can only count them in whole numbers. So for example, if you've got an investigation which is asking the number of children who likes different fruit on different days, we can't split that child in half, so we can only count the whole child, because you can't have 0.5 of a child. Whereas in continuous data, it is the data that can be measured, the values in between the whole numbers. So you could have temperature, because you could have 37.3 degrees Celsius, or you could have the minute, because you could have 12:05. So that is the main difference. Discrete is the whole number, and continuous is the values in between. So for this task, it says, in their science lesson, class 5 are investigating how the temperature of boiled water changes over time. So we're going to record the temperature over the 20 minutes in 5-minute intervals. But what I want you to think about is the data. Is that continuous or discrete data? Have a think. Remember, we are measuring the temperature. So, as we are measuring the temperature of something, this data is going to be continuous data. Because we could have 33.3 degrees Celsius, or we could have 84.7 degrees Celsius, and so on. So because we can have part of a number, part of the whole number, that's why the data is continuous. Can you answer these questions about the data? So let's see how you got on answering those questions. So the first thing I want to do is make sure we really understand what each question is asking us. So number 1, by how many degrees did the water cool from the 10th minute to the 15th minute? So we are looking from the 10th and the 15th. And we know it's going to cool down, which means the numbers are going to decrease. So let's look at this. So we're going to look at our table and we're going to highlight the 10, which is 30, and then the 15 minutes, which is 25. So we know that 30 subtract 25 equals 5. So your answer is 5 degrees Celsius. Let's look at number 2. By how many degrees did the water cool over the 20 minutes? So that is asking you for the whole amount. So we need to find 100 and then 20. So 100 subtract 20 equals 80. So the water cooled by 80 degrees Celsius over the time. Number 3. By how many degrees did the water cool over the first 5 minutes? Right, first 5. So we need to look at, we've got 100, and then 5 is 50. So 100 subtract 50 equals 50. So in the first 5 minutes, the water cooled by 50 degrees. And number 4, let's go for green. How many degrees did the water cool from the 5th minute to the 10th minute? So again, from 5th minute to the 10th minute. So we're going to do 50 and 30. So 50 subtract 30 equals 20. So your answer is 20 degrees Celsius. So hopefully, by colour coding the questions and by highlighting it, you can see that actually when you break the question down, you can get rid of a lot of the information. You're only focusing on the 2 numbers that is about the data. So it's not as overwhelming when you really understand what the question's asking you to do. So well done if you got those correct. So now we need to plot our data onto our line graph. So I have already drawn this out for us because otherwise it will just take too long on this screen. So as you can see, I have labelled the x-axis time in minutes. So that is the 0 to 20. And then on the y-axis, we have got the temperature in degrees Celsius. So that's what we're measuring. So we just need to write a title. So our title would be about a graph to show the temperature of coffee and now we would need to just plot the graph. So I'm not expecting to do this at home because so you won't have any squared paper, so I just think it's important that we remember how to do this. So our first data is 0 and that measured 84 degrees Celsius. So 0 is right on the line. Hopefully you can see that there's 4 different squares and lines in between which represent each number. 5 minutes is 40, so we go across, find 5 and then we go up. We always go across first because x is before y. So 5, we go up to 40. So we could measure it up with our ruler or your finger. Then you draw across where the lines meet. And then our next one is 10. So 10 minutes. And then 27. So we go up. 27. And then we go to 15 minutes. And that's 23. That there. And then 20 is 21. With the temperature, this could have started, it could have gone from 0 to 85, but this one started at 20. And then, with a ruler, you have to now join each point. So we're going to go, it might be quite tricky to do this on this board. So, the first one to the second one, and then, oh, no, keep that one there. Okay, I told you it's going to be tricky. I'm just going to draw a freehand, I think. That'll be easier. And then to there, to there, to there. Okay. So normally you'd use a ruler, but on this board it is quite tricky. So now we're going to see if we can answer some questions all about this graph. To find the answer, you would look to find 7 on the x-axis, and then with a ruler, measure up to where the line meets where the black line meets the blue line. Then measure across to the y-axis, and you should see that the answer is 35. The answer is 48 degrees Celsius. That's because we find the 4 on the x-axis and then we measure right the way up to where the black line meets the blue line, and then measure across on the y-axis. 48 degrees. So for this one, you've been given the 32 degrees as your measurement. So that is on the y-axis. So this time we need to find 32 on the y-axis and then measure across to where it meets the line and then go to the x-axis. So hopefully you got the answer 8 minutes. Same as the last one, find the 60 on the y-axis and then see where it reaches. So you can see that it's just after 2, so it'll be 2 minutes. I would also have accepted if you said 2 minutes and 20 seconds, or 2 minutes and 30 seconds, because it is just over the 2. So now you're going to have a go on your own. How did you get on with those questions? Tasks for today are on the next couple of slides. So you need to choose if you're going to do mild, spicy or hot. You need to look at the line graph and then answer the questions below. I have sent these out as a PDF, so if you've got access to them at home, you might want to print them out to make it easier to see. Otherwise, hopefully you'll be able to make out on the screen. If you complete those in time, there are problem-solving activities for you to do afterwards. The answers on the slide after the problem-solving activity. Morning Year 5, let's recap our learning from yesterday. Look at the line graphs and see if you can answer the questions. So the answer is 60 millimetres, because we can see that Dublin has got a rainfall of 80 millimetres and Paris has 20. So if we can do 80 subtract 20, that gives us the answer 60. So for this question, in which hours did the car travel faster than 50 miles per hour? So we would have highlighted hours and 50 miles per hour. It's important that you notice that in the word hours, it is an S on the end, which symbolises it's a plural. So the answer is going to be more than 1 hour. So you need to first of all identify where 50 miles per hour is on the graph. So you can see that I have drawn a line to help you. You now need to see what hours are above that line, sorry. You can see that there is 3, 4, 5 and 6 are all above the line, so your answer would be the hours of 3, 4, 5 and 6. For this question, it says how many times were the temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius in both London and Lisbon? So you'd highlight how many times above 30 degrees and in both. So you first need to then identify where is 30 degrees on the graph. So I have drawn you a red line to show you. It's important that you remember that it's above the 30 degrees. So in week 6, Lisbon is definitely above 30 degrees, and actually Lisbon's temperatures are always above 30 degrees, but unfortunately London was not. And in week 6, it did average at 30 degrees, but it's not above 30 degrees, therefore week 6 is not an answer. Some of you might have fallen for that one. So you need to identify on the graph which ones are in both, and I have put a red circle around the two ones that have got their temperatures above 30 degrees. So you've got week 1 and week 2. And it is asking you how many times, so your answer is 2 times. So well done if you got that correct. So let's see how we can interpret this data from the graph, from the table. So Cape Town is the second furthest destination from Gatwick. So we need to look at the data on the table and first of all order the destinations and see if this is true or false. So 5,470.1, 13,513, 8,932.3 or 17,006 in Sydney. So because they're all different numbers of thousands, we just need to put the thousands number for this one, and we can see that 5,470 is first, then Mexico City, so then that one, and that one, 13 or 17, so I know 13 is smaller than 17, and then 17,006 is the largest one. So now we put them in order, we can now work out which one is the second furthest. So the furthest one would be here, which means the second one must be this one. And then we look to see the table, which one is 13,513. That's Cape Town, which means that this answer is true. So now it's your turn. Use the table below to answer the question. How many more tickets did Banana Army and Beautiful North sell compared with Banana Army and Fairy Metal? You can do some jottings or workings out either in a book or a bit of scrap paper. So let's have a look at this question. How many more tickets did Banana Army and Beautiful North sell compared with Banana Army and Fairy Metal? Okay, so there's two parts to this question. First one is we need to do Banana Army and Beautiful North, add those two together. So 152,109, add 65,506. Okay, that's the first part of this question. Right, 9 and 6 is 15. 0 and 0 plus the 1, 1. 1 and 5 is 6. 2 and 5, 7. 5 and 6 is 11. And you put the 1 underneath. And then 1 plus the 1 is 2. So your answer for that part is 217,615. So these two give you this number. Okay, now the next part of the question is asking me to find Banana Army and Fairy Metal. So 152,109, add 32,565. Really important that you line your questions up carefully. It's hard to do it on a board to have a lot of squares, but You need to be on the right columns. Okay, so 9 times 5, 14. Sorry. Okay, 0 is 6, plus the 1, 7. 1 is 5, 6. 2 is 2, 4. 5 and 3 is 8. Plus the 1, 184,674. So these two. But the question isn't asking you how much, the question is asking you to compare the two. So how many more is this number compared to this number? So we now need to do another calculation. So this is a two-part question. And we now need to do 217,615 subtract 184,674 and see what the difference is. It's really, really important that you show you're working out in these sort of calculations. It's very easy to make a mistake. And remember, you do get marks for your working out. Okay, so something like this will probably be like at least 2-mark question, probably a 3-mark actually, because you're doing quite a lot of having to do 3 calculations to get the answer. Okay, so important that you remember to put the operation sign in to show that's a subtraction. So 5 subtract 4, 1. 1 subtract 7, we can't do that because that is 1 is smaller than 7. So we have to borrow from next door. Okay, so that becomes a 5. So now 11, take away 7. So that is 4. Okay, now we've got 5 take away 6, but it's really 500 subtract 600, which we can't do because 500 is smaller than 600. So again, we need to borrow from the neighbours. Oh dear, sorry. Okay, so we've got, take up the 7, that now becomes 6,000. So then we bring over the 1. So this is now 1,500 because you've brought over 1,000, you've borrowed 1,000 from the 7. So now this question would be 1,500 subtract 600. But we can also look at it as 15 subtract 6. And we know that is 9 to break it down. Okay, so now 6 subtract 4 we can do is 2. 1 subtract 8, we can't do that, so we need to look at the next door. Okay, so 11 subtract 8 is 3. And then 1 subtract 1 is nothing. So your answer should be 32,941. So well done to get that correct, year 5. Have a look at this one. Kira records the number of vehicles crossing a bridge over 3 weeks. Kira says that week 1 has the most traffic. Do you agree with Kira? Why? Make sure you show your workings out. Okay, so let's see how to get on with that one. Okay, so she says that she thinks that week 1 will have the biggest, the most traffic, the largest amount. So let's see if she's correct. You can't just say yes or no, you need to be able to say why. And that is something that we've had to really work on this year. Okay, so we need to add up all of week 1 together, then we need to do week 2, and then we need to do week 3, because then you can compare it properly. Okay, so week 1, I've done a grid here, but hopefully it'll be easy for you to see. So 341, 755. Add 1,075. Add 2,189. I'm just going to grab that 5 out because it's not very easy to see. So 1075. Okay, so now we need to add these all up together. Notice how my numbers are all lined up in the correct column so we don't get confused. It would just be useful here to have the addition sign here so that anybody who sees your work knows you're doing an addition sum. So 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 9 is 19. So 9 there and 1 underneath. 5 plus 7 is 12, plus 8 is 20, plus the 1, 21, so there are 2 underneath. 7 plus 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10, 1 underneath. 1 plus 1, 2, plus 4, sorry, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. We've got 4 here, and nothing, and then 3. So your answer here, for week 1, is this. So week 1 gives you 345,019 cars. That's quite a lot of vehicles. Okay, now we look at week 2. So 302,122, 2,343, 1,999. Okay, so the same thing, we add them all up together so that we can compare them properly. Okay. Again, the addition sign. So 2 and 3 is 5, plus 9 is 14. 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 9, 15, plus 1 is 16. 1 plus 9 is 10, I'm seeing for the number ones there. Plus 3 is 13, plus 1, 14. 2 and 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, plus 1 more is 6. We've got nothing there, so we just write a 0 there as a placeholder, and we've got your 3. So week 2 is 306, 464. So far, we can see that Kira is correct. But the last one now. So week 3, 312,343. Add 1,899, add 2,019. Okay, so we are now going to have to add these up. 3 and 9 is 12, plus 9, 21, so 1 there goes 2 underneath. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus a 4, 14, plus 2 is 16. And then 3 and 8 is 11, plus the 1, 12, 1 underneath. 2 and 2 is 4, plus the 1, 5. Add 1, 6. 1 there, 3 there. So your answer for week 3 is 316,261. So if you look at the numbers now, Kira is correct, okay? So she is correct, and then you could reference these 3 calculations. So well done for that correct year 5. learning for today, what I'd like you to do is I want to do some problem solving activities to really help consolidate the learning we have done about line graphs and tables so far this week. So if you are quite confident that you have completely understood line graphs and tables and you found the work okay so far, then I would suggest that you carry on and you do the problem solving on the next few slides. If you have found some of them a little bit tricky, or you haven't finished, or you just want to do a bit more practice, then that's okay. You could carry on from the Monday or Tuesday task, but just write in your book today's date so I know that you've continued, and then maybe once you're a bit more confident you could try one of the challenges from today. So it's your choice.